Hi, I'm Deanna Wagner, speech-language pathologist here in Phoenix, Arizona, responding to a request from my friends in Brazil. They asked me for AAC Awareness Month in October to do a little bit of a repeat of a session that I did for them on Instagram regarding AAC and literacy instruction. I mostly wanted to emphasize for people the importance of knowledgeable communication partners. And so throughout this little presentation, I'll share some ideas about how our partners can be more knowledgeable in the ways that we provide experiences for AAC and literacy. So the thread that runs through most of the research that we see on literacy and AAC development has to do with what our communication partners are doing. So when we have knowledgeable others, they realize some of the important elements to help our students become successful readers and writers and better at communicating using augmentative and alternative communication techniques. So what we're proposing is based on research, and this book by Karen Erickson and Dr. Karen Erickson and Dr. David Copenhaver help us to understand that what we do with kids who have disabilities isn't different than what we would do with all of our kids to help them to become better readers and writers. And the more we know about how to support them, the better we can be at helping them to be engaged cognitively, to provide them with a means of interaction and a way of being a part of the literacy journey with us, allocating the time to do it because we know that it involves a personal connection in order to build both communication and literacy skills. So the more our partners know about language and literacy development, the better we are able to help somebody build their communication and literacy skills. We know this is based on evidence-based practice, and if you're interested in reading about an article by Dr. Jill Senner and Matthew Bod, you can find it here. The link is in the slideshow. And what is important is that parent instruction makes a difference and is possible in order to help our students be better users of speech generating devices. The articles in Practical AAC, this website here, explains the methodology that Jill and Matthew use using the acronym SMORES. And this article is a quick overview. So this might be worth translating into Portuguese, looking at what they did to help parents understand what they could do better with their family members in order to support them in communication. So what is SMORES? This is the acronym: slow down. Take some time when you're interacting with somebody who uses AAC to speak slowly and clearly. Model on a communication system, respect and what they say and reflect what they say using all different kinds of methods. Repeat it and expand on it. The last letter S is stop talking all the time. Give them a little bit more time to respond and just pause expectantly, waiting for the person who's learning to use the communication system to take their conversational turn. So another free training that you may want to get translated, and I believe that people are already working on getting this translated into Portuguese, is the modules by Tabby Jones Wolliver. And these are also available On the Practical AAC website, there are facilitator guides and PowerPoints. So you can see these here, 11 modules. And my favorite is Let the Child Lead. So communication partners who are knowledgeable about AAC and knowledgeable about the student, the individual, can do a great job of following their lead, because we can be flexible in the way that we respond and teach. So I'll give a few examples as we go through today's session. Lastly, with regards to the methodology and the supports based on evidence, we need to consider how the techniques that we're using to train our children, our learners, to use augmentative communication and to build their literacy skills. We need to make sure those techniques are as naturalistic as possible. I focus on holistic learning so that we can address the individual and help them to build relationships, keeping in mind that the relationships with your parent is different than the relationship with your teacher or your therapist. But overall, the goal of communication intervention is being able to communicate in natural environments with multiple communication partners. As far as literacy goes, the communication and literacy modules that are offered by Project CORE are a great resource for evidence-based activities, materials, supports, and ideas. So this module, module number 8, about shared reading, is something I would recommend that you translate into Portuguese as well. And if we click on here to learn more about module 8, we'll see that there are handouts from Project CORE. So we know that there are a variety of references to conferences. And under professional development, we can see each of the modules from beginning communicators to shared reading. When we look at how shared reading is important to individuals who are learning to use AAC, we can see that this module will help people understand what shared reading is, how to support student interaction during shared reading, and help think about what types of books are good for shared reading. We can do a self-directed module or work in a group. And when we click on this, we'll see that there are videos that are actually going to show us, what do we mean when we do shared reading? What do we mean when we talk about commenting, pausing, and waiting during a shared reading activity? So there's a video there that you can watch, and I will give you some other examples of shared reading in a minute. The other thing to keep in mind is that shared reading is great for students who are at the emergent literacy level, and you do want to think about whether your individuals, your learners that you're working with, are ready for conventional literacy instruction, or if we're going to focus on explicit teaching at the emergent literacy level. So those who are still learning about literacy may not know their letters yet, and emergent literacy instruction is designed to help them learn more about how letters look, sound, and work. So if they're not ready for conventional literacy instruction, we need to do some other things. Conventional readers and writers already know the letters of the alphabet, are actively engaged, have a way of communicating during shared reading, and understand that writing involves letters and words. If they don't know that, then the kinds of activities that we would do during comprehensive emergent literacy instruction would be these: shared reading, predictable chart writing, alphabet and phonological awareness activities, independent writing with the whole alphabet, self-directed reading, and use robust symbol-based communication using augmentative and alternative techniques whenever necessary, all day long. So here is a little bit of the slides from that facilitated materials video in the shared reading module by Project Core. So we can see that Karen and the person she's reading with are interacting. They're looking and sharing their book together. We're maximizing interactions and connections, not quizzing kids, not asking them to demonstrate what they already know, but letting them show us what they're interested in, pausing, and responding to them. So similar to what we said Jill and Matt recommend in the s'mores module, we need to do a lot of pausing and waiting during our shared reading. Also, just as we know from Tabby Jones-Wallaber's Master Pal series on communication partner training, it's important that even when we're doing reading, that we allow the students to have an opportunity to lead the interactions. Here's one more resource in the Closing the Gap Solutions issue from May. In May, Erin Sheldon posted this article thinking about how literacy and language develop as a continuum. So when we first start our literacy journey, individuals are just observing, experiencing, and exploring. And that's the same thing with learning language. Our first stage has to do with experiences and explorations. The more experiences they have, the more we can notice them getting used to familiar behaviors that are part of a routine that start to look more and more like reading and writing, scribbling with crayons, flipping through pages, and being more engaged in joint attention, joint activities with other people around reading and writing and communicating. The more they do that, we start to see some other behaviors that reflect students' interest in being engaged in stories just for the sake of stories, and using more conventional tools to talk about them. In order to use language, we need to experience it together. So communication is about our joint experiences. Even adults are still learning about how to use language and to improve their communication. And this is a photo from a classroom where I spend time every week and in helping adults to use different forms of communication and improve their literacy skills. So to become effective as a person who uses communication, augmentative communication, they need communication partners who know how it works. So today I'm going to demonstrate a little bit with Snap plus Core First from Toby Dynavox because it's available in Portuguese. And so we're going to take a look at how we might use Snap Core First during shared reading. So we can, as we're reading a book, consider how some of the messages in the quick fires could be used to say something positive or something negative. So let me pull up the app. If I look at my quick fires, I can see right here a variety of positive comments that I could choose from as I'm reading a book.
Incrível. Muito bem.
So, although I don't speak Portuguese, I get some kind of an idea from these messages because they have those little smiley faces, and underneath them I can see some of these other ones that have little frowny faces. Okay, so to talk about
Não gosto.
something that I don't like. And so as we're reading a book, we can use some of these comments. And I'm going to clear those right now and go back to our slideshow to talk about the next thing. So when we're reading, helping somebody to become a better reader and writer involves giving more experiences with the letters of the alphabet and the sounds. So here's an example from a couple of the young students that I work with as their speech language pathologist and trainer, a person who trains somebody to use communication devices. The letters of the alphabet are written in glow lettering at the bottom. And so knowing how the letters look can make a difference, and whatever we need to do to make them stand out is important so that each letter looks different from the others. The clapping hands on this page has to do with phonological awareness, syllables, thinking about how long a word is. When we say Antonio in English, it has 4 syllables. Antonio. When we say it in Spanish, it actually has 3. Antonio. So it's important to have knowledgeable communication partners who are aware of how we would introduce letters, letter sounds. In Spanish, we don't bother with letter names because each letter has a sound that we can use when we name our letters in our emergent literacy instruction. In this slide, we have a link to a story in a software called Tar Heel Reader. And so Tar Heel Reader has settings where I can turn on a speech synthesis to hear the text read in a child's voice, a woman's voice, or a man's voice. It is not a high quality voice. And as I can show you here.
Jugamos con tu nombre.
All right, so it sounds a little bit muted, a little bit muffled, and a little bit electronic. And so our knowledgeable communication partners are going to spend some time reading these types of books with our individuals to help them to understand how the letters work and how letters are put together to make words. The image on this page here that says clap, tap, and stretch is actually a little bit from one of Dr. Caroline Musselwhite's songbooks. And so she does clap your name, tap your name, stretch it till it's long. And so we could go Antonio. Again, that's how we would do it in the English, right? Tap your name to touch it. Maybe we would tap it on their communication device or on a name card. Stretch it till it's long. Antonio. And when we go to spell your name, well, we can spell your name on a communication system like our Snap Core First and find the letters in your name from the keyboard page. So that would be a way to do that. We could do each letter here.
A, N, T, O, N, I, O.
Okay, and so there would be an example of each letters.
Miramos vocales en rojo y consonantes en verde.
We can use differentiation of vowels and consonants to help somebody understand a little bit more about letters and give them
Cantamos sílabas. Antonio.
more opportunities to
Tocamos letras. A, N, T, O, N, I, O.
work. I'm going to go back to our slideshow here and let you know that if you want more ideas about how to use alphabet knowledge and phonological awareness in your instructional activities, you could find this little book on Teachers Pay Teachers that was written by Dr. Musselwhite, myself, and Dr. Hanser, and get lots of ideas about how to do things like this name game and many other games that would help build phonological awareness for with kids who have limited capacity for pronouncing the letters using their own voice. And so we need to provide experiences for kids who aren't able to produce speech sounds clearly, how they can play around with speech sounds using a communication system. And Dr. Erickson reminds us that if a student doesn't have an opportunity to learn how to use a keyboard to spell, they'll always be reliant on other people to clarify messages for them when they're not understood. So the 26 letters of the alphabet are the most important symbols that we can teach somebody who has difficulty communicating. When we use symbols, we need to keep in mind that the interactions that we have around the symbols are going to be different based on the grammatical rules of the language that we're using. Language is complex, and so we use different forms of verbs or different forms of adjectives in Latin languages based on the context. And the people who know how to do that are people who are fluent in that language. So the more you use that language, the easier it's going to be for you to be a good communication partner. Our partners need to be knowledgeable about how language works in order to help people who use AAC to be more effective communicators and to learn to read and spell. So here's a little example of a shared reading activity that I was doing with a group that Claudia Marimon leads. She's in Chile, Santiago, but her group is all over the world. And they were reading a little book about a mosquito that they call zancudo. In Mexico, we would refer to them as mosquitos. But they had this little familia zancudo, and we read a book about Señor Zancudo, and he was going all around and biting people because he was hungry. And so we read a book and we had a chance to interact around that book about Señor Zancudo, and the story was written by one of the mamas in the group. And afterwards, everybody had a chance to say something to Mr. Zancudo. They used their communication devices to find some things that they would tell him, and we sang a little song. So here is the song that was related but not exactly the same. So when we look for opportunities to expand on vocabulary, we can think about how routines can build predictability and help our students to make associations. So here's a little song about an ant.
Una hormiguita chiquitita se pasea en mi nariz y yo me rasco la nariz y yo me rasco la nariz y yo me rasco la nariz. Sal hormiga, sal de aquí, no te pares en mi nariz. Sal hormiga, sal de aquí, no me piques la nariz. Una hormiguita chiquita.
So we're going through the song, and there's repeated lines. So songs are a great way to have predictability. The trouble with a song is it goes really fast. We can try to slow it down. So in the YouTube setting, we do have an option to change the playback speed. So we can think about slowing down our playback speed to give us a little bit more time as we saying, oh, this little ant, I want to tell him to get off my nose because I don't want him on my nose, right? Don't bite me on my nose. And we may not notice the rhymes because the song goes too fast. So I wrote a little book in Tar Heel Reader to slow down and take a look at the rhyming words. So, no me piques hormiguita.
Hormiga loca, no me piques en.
Okay, is the title. And now on the first page, we have hormiga loca, no me piques en. And we can think about how we might use our communication system. So, for example, vocabulary lists may include body parts. And so we can say, no me piques en la boca.
Antonio Boca.
Okay. If we're just using our comments, thinking about how during shared reading we might comment, we might say something like this. I don't like it.
Não gosto.
And so we can think about how we do some rhyming words, loca, boca, pelo, suelo. So helping our learners to notice how letters work and how they go together to make words is one way that a knowledgeable partner can help them to build their language and literacy skills. Another thing we can do is to use social stories and social scripts during our shared reading. And our partners can help write a social script. So in the SNAP Core vocabulary, we have topics. And in the topics, for example, the topic on cooking, there are some visual supports. The dialogue here is a set of sentences that goes in order. And we can use this as a social story and think about practicing how I would write that. I'd like to make something. Let's take a look at our recipes. This is really going to be fun. What exactly were we making again? So we can go through and write a script together, talk about what the cooking activity is going to be like using a script here. We can also look at a script that is symbol-based with just some very basic step-by-step sequencing. Early emergent readers and writers will benefit from the interactions that happen as we talk about what are we going to do first, what are we going to do next, and what are we going to add in each step of the writing process. So let me move back to the slides here, and I'll show you another example of a shared reading and writing opportunity. This is from the adult group that you saw the kitchen a little bit earlier, and Raina also was working with them. She has a similar kitchen at her high school. So we did this activity with high school and with an adult group. We made applesauce. So I'm going to show you how we might change the pages in a book when we're writing with somebody. So we're going to log into Tar Heel Reader and take a look at how we would upload our pictures. And write our sentences. So what I did with these groups is we took pictures as we made our applesauce. And so we had our title, applesauce is good for you, and we talked about what would be some words that you might use instead of just saying the word good. So we had this idea of applesauce is super, the berries are great. And remember earlier we talked about in our chat words, we have the opportunity to find some descriptive words that we could use to say that we like it. Maybe we might say it's incredible.
Incrível.
And so we could think about, instead of saying great, we could change this to say it's incredible. Okay? And when we're all done, we have a book that describes all of our lovely ingredients that we use to make our applesauce that is super good for you and delicious too. And our writing process can engage our learners in creating the book. And then later on, we publish this book and we can read it. So I'm wondering what you will write with your learners. The best way to be a knowledgeable partner is to start with shared interests and experiences. We do a lot of things with cooking. So ice cream and into smoothies, and add green stuff that can be very fun and engaging. Anytime you add some spinach to a drink, it doesn't change the flavor, but it certainly changes the colors. So think about asking for input from your learners. You can go in and check out the lists of words, talk about what the people that might be part of it, talk about the foods that could be added, think about feeling words that could be how we would describe what we're reading about, how we feel about it. And I hope that you have enjoyed this slideshow. I guess I should go here to say our goodbyes. I think there should be something in here.
Tchau.
Ciao.
Até mais.
Until next time. We want to look at making those connections. Here's feelings on cookies. So I wanted to share these ideas with my Facebook community. So we posted it there. We have a Facebook group, and we can talk about our recipes. And as we work together, we can share. My friend Sydney goes on Facebook Live and posts about her vacation and talks about the things that she's making with her speech therapist too. So I hope to see you on Instagram or in Facebook. Look for my posts at aacgirlsblogspot.com or send me an email. Have a great day.